Okay guys, so Anime Origins is on the verge of releasing, so I decided to make a little tier list so you guys know which units are good and which you need to go for the release. So without further ado, just to start right now. So we're going to start with the meta DPS's units. So you guys already know from the start which unit doing the most damage and the most usable. So it's only my opinion, okay? You can have your own opinion, but this is what I think. Okay, I tried all of the units in the game and their passives, and that's what I think of it. So for me, the best DPS in the game, the best unit in the game, will be Madara. Okay, it doesn't mean that the other unit sucks, but it's just my personal opinion. I think that he's best. Okay, so you're just going to place them straight away like this. After it's Alucard, and then Yuta, Meliodas, Igris, and Goku. Okay, so if we go look at Madara passive, okay, so not only he's immune to crowd control, so that means if a boss attacks him, he's going to be immune to it for 3 seconds. He also has his Susano time, okay, which is increasing every time he kills a boss, any enemies. And he also has an ability which will do 300% damage of this unit damage, which is crazy. He also has a nuke, and when he does his nuke, he will also transform into his Susano, okay, which have all of these abilities but enhanced. Okay, he even pursues enemies when they're going out of his range, which I found it really crazy, and he's doing a lot of damage overall. And then if we go look at Alucard, okay, he's giving himself a lot of buffs. Okay, he can gain range, crit chance, he also gain damage, and he can also stun bosses with a coffin for 7 seconds, which can be very useful um, for, I don't know, some game modes or whatever. And he also has a restriction bar above his head, which gives him various buffs um, in depending on which restriction you are. So we can see at the first one he gains 10% damage, and the second one he gains 10% dot damage, and after the third one he summons ghouls, so which we have 32% of this unit damage. So he is also a summoning unit, which makes him the only summoning unit in the game for now. And then afterwards he gains 25% summon health, and now he can summon ghouls every 15 enemies defeated, and they gain 60% speed. Okay, so he's really good. He can stun bosses pretty often. He's a summoner unit, and he's buffing himself quite every time. And then we have Yuta. I was struggling thinking if I should put him above or in the middle, but I think this is a good spot because Yuta, this passive is not really crazy and all, but that's cool. But the good thing about Yuta is that he can copy any unit's abilities. Okay, so not only Yuta has also have an ability by himself, okay, which do 200% of this unit damage, but he can also copy up to 4 abilities. So that means he can copy Madara's abilities, and let's say also Igris abilities. I just found that just by the fact that he can copy other units abilities, it makes him crazy OP. Okay, and then we have Meliodas, okay, which is probably the most complex unit in the game because he does a lot of things. Okay, so he has 10 commandments, and you can see that each one of them does different things. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you guys can see that he can pull any backwards. He can also give damage to a specific unit. He can petrify units, burn. He can also slow. He increases damage by 150%. That's why he's that high in the meta DPS, even though it's not very consistent because he circled through each one of them. but he can pretty much do anything. But why he's not higher is because he's not really reliable. Like if you only want him to do damage, he won't be able to do that because he circle between each and one of them. But he's very useful for pretty much everything because he can pretty much do anything in the game. Okay, so now we're going back to Igris. Okay, so Igris I think is a pretty good unit because he's very consistent with his damage, because you know he's triggering oppressed when he's attacking enemies, which will give him 10% crit chance, crit damage, and 10% damage against boss and mini boss. So he will get those buffs pretty often because you get it every 6 seconds. So yeah, and he also has an abilities. Okay, when you're going to trigger it, you're going to gain 35% damage and 20% cooldown. But it's the fact that his Crimson Overload bar thing is filling up very fast, so he'll be able to do like consistent damage for a while. So that's why I think he's good. I could have put in like Goku above it, but I don't know, they're pretty interchangeable. But yeah, it's whatever, they're both good. And Goku is for me the best boss killer in the game because we can see that he can deal 25% damage above units who are 80% damage, and he can do 40% damage more damage to bosses. So that's a pretty much guaranteed damage boost, because most of the time all the units you're going to kill are going to be above 80% damage boost. So that's already a 40% damage boost against boss. Okay, and every third attack he gains 1 fighting spirit, so there is 10 fighting spirits, and he gains 2% damage each time he fills 1 up. Okay, so he basically gained 20% damage more once this is filled up, and once these fighting spirits are filled up, he will gain an additional 15% damage, 15% crit chance. So that means in total he will gain like 35% damage boost, not including this. So if we including this means he will gain 55% damage boost pretty consistently, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. And you can also teleportate him to any point in the map, so it can be very good if the boss like goes outside of your range. You could just have to teleport him to the boss and he will do a lot of damage. So I think I will put Goku here above Igris because I just realized he can do more damage more often. And now going to the heal units, there is only 2 heal units at the moment, so we have Aneko and Vegeta. Okay, so if we go to Aneko, where is she? She's there. So both of these heal units are pretty decent. They are not crazy, but they are here because they're the only one. So the good thing about this unit is that she's full AoE, and she is the only heal unit which is full AoE, so that's why she's higher than Vegeta in my opinion. But she also can do increased damage based on the missing health up to 35% damage. So since she is full AoE, if you're attacking a pack of enemies, she can be pretty good, since she does the more damage, the more the missing health the enemies have. So since she's full AoE, she's pretty good. So that's why I will put her at the best heal at the moment. And then second position, we also have Vegeta. I don't have much choice since there's only 2 of them, but yeah, he can gain 25% crit chance if Goku is in his range, but I don't really like those type of passive because they feel like kind of restrictive, since you need to bring another unit to unlock another passive. And then there's also this final stand thing. So each time he fails to clear an enemy, he gains 1 resolve, and at 5 resolve he enters the final stand stage, which lasts for 10 seconds. He gains 25% damage and minus 15 SPS, so that's pretty decent, but I find that Aneko is better because she's full AoE. And then moving on onto the support units, so we have Ban, Gojo, and Meliodas. So Ban, okay, so for me he's the best support in the game because not only he can provide 50% more money from the enemies you kill, but also he can generate different meals, which they generate pretty often, which give different type of boost. One give more damage, minus cooldown, more range, crit damage, and by example this meal which give 30% more damage, 25 minus cooldown, more range, 50%. Those are crazy stats boost, okay? Okay, they last for like 25 seconds, but since the meals are being generated pretty often, he's really good and a reliable support for me. So next we have, so that's why he's first. We have Gojo, so he does pretty much the same thing as every Gojo in any tower defense game, but the good thing about him is that any enemies that attacks him, this will be notified, so if any boss attacks him, he will do being not touched, which is very good. And he can also slow enemy for 6 seconds by 30%, and he can also time stop, okay, and the enemies that got caught in this time stop will take 5% of his damage in true damage, and it's being used every 60 seconds, so it's pretty reliable if you want time stop, but he's the only unit who does it, so yeah, that's why he's that high. And then we have Meliodas, okay. So like I said before, he can do many things, okay? Like for support, he can petrify enemies, he can slow, he can do pretty much everything, but it's not really reliable as a support on one thing, since he has to do many things. Like if you want him to petrify or even slow, you will have to wait for him to cycle through every of his commandments to be able to do that. So if you want him to do one specific thing, he's not the guy for it. But if you want to use him for support and you wait until he gets his support commandment, he can be good for it. So yeah, and now moving on to the good categories. Okay, so all of these units are good until some point, but I just think they are far less stronger than these top tier unit, but it can be debatable with Igris and Goku. But yeah, so some of them are good, but some of them are very trash. But these are most of the units you're going to get at the start of the game because these are harder to get. So now if we go look to Sasuke, so the best unit between all of these is because he has two mode, okay? He has one which is lightning mode, which will give him damage stacks and cooldown stacks, and then he has the second mode which is Amaterasu, which give him burn damage, okay? And once he has cycled through 3 modes, he will unleash an attack with his Susanoo, which will deal 200% of this unit damage in a small AoE. So it's pretty good, he can do reliable damage, so if you have him, you're good. And Naruto pretty much does the same thing, but he only has one mode, which will give him more damage, less cooldown, and more range, okay? And he also does he triggers a small attack, which is doing 50% of this unit's damage, kind of like Sasuke, okay? So those two are pretty good. And next noticeable character, we have Yutaro, okay? So he's the only mythical unit which is full AoE, if we don't count Aneko, so there is 2 full AoE mythical units in the game, Aneko and Yutaro, so that's already a good point. He also does more damage to bleeding enemies, and he also does poison, which is good. But the good thing about this character is his blood cut, okay? So those blood cut will generate themselves, but they will like explode when they touch the enemies and dealing damage to nearby enemies. So these blood cuts also does a kind of AoE damage, and if we count that he also is a full AoE character, can be very good if there is a lot of enemies at once. And then we have Stark. He's pretty decent, he does more damage, he's the only character in his range. He can also slow a little bit, he can also switch from gun to sword, which will change his attack pattern, so that's pretty good. And he also has a small nuke in a range with 20% of this unit damage, so he's pretty good overall. He can buff his damage, he can slow, he has a little nuke, so overall he's pretty solid. And then going from there, we also have Yoto, which is very good for long game mode, most likely infinite mode, because he can stack his damage up to 30% damage, but you have to wait um, a good chunk of time because you have to defeat like 250 enemies to reach his full potential. He can also stack storing damage when he marks enemies up to 30% damage, which is good, which is does exploding on enemies. That's good, but you have to wait until this mark stacks up to the max, so that's why he's only good for long game mode, I will say. And then going from there, all of these characters sucks ass. They are really bad, okay? But if these are the only characters you have, they will do, but they're very bad. Like from here to all of them, they're bad. But there are some characters that can be noticeably good for something. If we go to Zeldris, he's very bad, but we have to notice that he can buff his own damage by 50%, which is something if you play him with Meliodas, but to be honest, nobody would play him. You also have Shinobu. She's bad because she does clearly almost no damage, even though she has poison, but her damage is so like like bad that it's not very usable. And his poison, he's not very reliable because it's between 0% and 20%. Like she can't even do damage with poison if you have bad luck. But if there's one thing she's good for is against regenerating enemies, because she applies wound, which will reduce the healing received from all sources by 80%. So if you need to forbid an enemy from regenerating himself, you need to bring Shinobu, and she will be good for this. And Mikey, he's really bad, but there's one noticeable thing that he can do, is that if you put him at slot 1 as a leader, he can buff your units up to 10% damage, but I don't think anyone will use him for that. But if you do have him, well, it's noticeably good to know that you can gain up to 10% damage if it is in your first slot. So yeah, so this is the full tier list, and we also have those two money units. They are both good, they give money, so whatever. So yeah, that's what the tier list is looking like. So I hope this video will help you guys know which unit to go for. So see you guys later.